Welcome to this exploration of the poetry of a controversial figure in early Islamic history. In this video, we delve into the intriguing verses of a Caliph or ruler of Islam who only half a century after the establishment of Islamic dogma and sanctities by Muhammad openly mocked, criticized, and challenged these supposedly sacred principles. He was known for his unorthodox lifestyle and was a patron of poetry, celebrating themes like wine, music, and love. You want to know who this bold and courageous king was and how he expressed his views and values in his poems? Stay with us, because it's coming up. Yazid ibn Mu'awiya, the second Umayyad Caliph, ruled from 680 to 683 CE and was the sixth ruler of Islam after Muhammad. But he was notorious for his un-Islamic lifestyle. Not only his personality was a subject of dispute among Muslims. For him, drinking wine, listening to music, gambling, and indulging in pleasures of the flesh, his reign was also marked by events that stirred controversy, including the killing of the Prophet's grandson, Husayn ibn Ali, and attacks on the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Furthermore, he dared to violate the sanctity of the Kaaba and the mosque of the Prophet. Yazid was also fond of poetry and composed many verses that reflected his views and values. Some of his poems are considered eloquent and expressive, while others are criticized for their vulgarity and blasphemy by most Muslims, especially Shiites. Some of his poems are also disputed in terms of their authenticity and attribution by some Sunni Muslims who try to defend his legitimacy as a caliph, literally meaning a successor to the Prophet of Islam. Yet they all agree on Yazid's proficiency in poetry. Interestingly, some Western historians consider him a pivotal figure in advancing the culture and arts of the Arabian community. Henri Lamont, a Belgian Orientalist historian, draws parallels between Yazid and Maecenas, a Roman diplomat and patron of poets and artists. Just as Gaius Maecenas supported culture and literature in the ancient Roman Empire, Yazid played a similar role in the Arabian context. Arise, you who grieve in sorrow, and give in to the music's flow. Drink a goblet of wine, leave your regrets behind. The lute song drew me away from hearing the call to pray. I'd rather have a vintage than a four-holy image. If the world goes into a spin, there's no way to break the ring. So savor the life you lead, for the life will soon recede. If the fire burns all we own, it won't injure any bone. In the Islamic world, Yazid was the first person who ridiculed the Islamic concepts in his poetry and openly spoke of pleasure, wine, and love. He was also the first person who dared to criticize the Islamic rules such as banning dance, music, and liquor. What the Europeans called Epicureanism, Muslims should call Yazidism, because Yazid was the pioneer of this philosophy in the Islamic world. Leave the mosques for the Muslims to sojourn. Go drink on the bench of the tower. Those who drink in the Rivalry are on cloud 7. And for the Muslims there is neither world nor heaven. Your God said not woe to those who carouse, but he said woe to those who pray to pose. And even if death come through trickery, then how sweet is death after revelry. And if paradise is reached by a sword, then after lust, how gross is this award? This poem reflects Yazid's lenient nature and his stance against Islamic violence and terrorism. In another poem, he reveals his indifference to expansion of Islamic territory through military campaigns. In 678, Mu'awiya, Yazid's dad and predecessor, had sent an army to lay siege to Constantinople, the Byzantine capital, but failed to capture it. Muslims' army also suffered from a plague that killed many of their soldiers. Yazid did not join the army initially, but later he reluctantly went to Constantinople to inspect the situation. He was not impressed by the siege, and he returned the army to Damascus with little glory. In 680 CE, he wrote this poem to his father Mu'awiya, explaining why he did not care about the fate of the army that fought the Byzantines. Why would I care about their destiny, regarding their fever and malady, when I leaned on cushions cozily in the monastery with my lady? This poem highlights Yazid's positive relationship with the Christians of Syria or Levant. German scholar Wilfred Madelon noted Yazid as a man of considerable culture, a poet and lover of music, with religious tolerance and positive relations with Christians. He argued Yazid wasn't responsible for Husayn's death and tried to prevent the tragedy of Karbala. Expanding on the details of the opposition between Yazid and Husayn as discussed in this episode, the rivalry primarily stemmed from conflicting visions for the Caliphate. Husayn aspired to establish an Islamic government grounded in the principles of his grandfather Muhammad, emphasizing a model rooted in Islamic rules. In contrast, Yazid and the Umayyad faction sought a more liberal form of governance, emphasizing a broader and less strictly religious approach. Shumaisa's a vine whose cluster is its bat's base. Its east is the bartender, and its west my face. When its drops flow from its base into a goblet, it tells of pilgrims rushing to the qibla. If by Ahmad's faith it's forbidden, then take it by Jesus' religion. Hey, by the way, if you guys liked what you heard so far, please support us by liking and sharing this video. This will also help more people to receive this awareness and help you to get suggested more similar videos on YouTube. Especially, I ask you for a favor to like the video because so many radical Muslims often attack this channel by disliking its videos to prevent YouTube from spreading its clips. While some Muslim scholars have cast doubt on the authenticity of Yazid's poems, suggesting they were later fabricated to tarnish his Islamic legitimacy as a caliph, it's noteworthy that this skepticism seems to be concentrated on poems that challenge the conventional Islamic norms. However, it's essential to consider historical context. Numerous early Muslim historians, in their works, provide narrations that affirm Yazid's ownership of a vineyard named Shumaisa. If Yazid indeed possessed a vineyard, the question arises, could he not taste wine even once out of curiosity? And as a poet, could he not compose verses praising and showcasing his vineyard, given his ownership? Now English Rumi introduces another layer of controversy surrounding Yazid. Can the references to wine in his poetry be interpreted as Sufi or mystic wine? I mean the wine symbolizing a metaphorical spiritual truth that is deeply satisfying when absorbed into the human soul. The notion of mystic wine adds a fascinating dimension to the interpretation of Yazid's poetry. Could the indulgence in wine, as depicted in his verses, represent a symbolic pursuit of a profound and spiritual truth that transcends conventional understanding? As I mentioned before in this clip, numerous renowned Persian poets, often identified as Sufis or mystics, have drawn inspiration from Yazid's poetry. Notably, Hafiz, celebrated as one of the most famous Sufi poets, kickstarts his entire collection of poems with a line borrowed from Yazid's verses. Yazid has a poem starting with this verse: I'm poisoned and I have no cure or healer. Turn a cup and bring it here, O wine dealer. Hafiz draws inspiration from Yazid's verses, and in his poetic debut, he echoes Yazid's sentiment. albeit with a slight shift of the exact same Arabic words. O wine dealer, turn a cup and let it plain. For love at first seemed plain, but brought so much pain. Here in the English translation though, we changed the words a bit to fit the rhyme. This borrowing, however, sparked considerable controversy among Persian clerics and literary scholars. Some went as far as attempting to deny the attribution of the original phrase to Yazid, while others condemned Hafiz for incorporating a couplet associated with a figure at odds with the conventional Shia narrative. Interestingly, the debate intensifies when considering the perspective of Julie Maysami, a renowned interpreter of Hafiz's poems. Contrary to attempts to disassociate Yazid from the verse, Maysami suggests that even if the couplet is not definitively Yazid's, Hafiz likely believed it to be so and purposefully integrated it into his own work. This complex interplay of literary influence and religious context adds a layer of complexity to the understanding of both Yazid's and Hafiz's poetry. G.R. Harding, a British historian of early Islam, portrayed Yazid as a cultivated man who enjoyed music and hunting, highlighting his abilities as a ruler. According to Harding, Yazid was potentially more popular among the Arabs than his father Mu'awiya, maintaining a strong support base in Syria. Apparently, Yazid had a great sense of humor too. Hugh Kennedy, a British historian of the medieval Middle East, echoed this sentiment, describing Yazid as a man of considerable charm and culture, who actively engaged in poetry, music, and patronage of artists. Kennedy credited Yazid as a competent administrator and military leader, emphasizing his role in sustaining the unity and prosperity of the Umayyad Empire. Interestingly, historical anecdotes reveal Yazid's sense of humor too. Al-Waqidi recounted an amusing episode involving Yazid and his pet monkey named Abu Qais. Yazid, known for his wit, dressed the monkey in silken clothes, seated it on a throne, and even included it in his drinking parties. In a sarcastic twist, Yazid claimed the monkey was one of the Banu Israel, transformed into apes by Allah for breaking the Sabbath, and that it survived to entertain us now with its antics. This ironic gesture could be seen as Yazid playfully mocking the Quran's frequent criticism of the Banu Israel. For a person who is familiar enough with Quran and has no dogma over it, this can be really funny since Quran has criticized ancient Israelis over 40 times for their disobedience, ingratitude, and corruption by explicitly mentioning their name, which is Banu Israel, literally meaning the children of Israel. And no other race or tribe has been criticized by this great extent in Quran. By saying that his monkey was one of them, Yazid was indeed sarcastically mocking the Quran's obsession over Banu Israel. Much like Yazid challenged established norms in his time, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Reza Shah Pahlavi, and Mohammed bin Salman, each in their respective periods, undertook transformative initiatives aimed at countering Islamic regression and superstitions. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of modern Turkey, implemented a series of secular reforms in the 1920s, aiming to modernize the country by separating religion from politics, education, and public life. Reza Shah Pahlavi, the founder of the Pahlavi dynasty in Iran, contemporary of Atatürk, embarked on a secularization process, emphasizing modernization, education, and women's rights, while reducing the influence of clerics. Mohammed bin Salman also, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, has been at the forefront of ambitious plans to modernize the kingdom, including social reforms, economic diversification, and efforts to curb the influence of conservative clerics. While these leaders may not share Yazid's specific methods or cultural context, they echo a similar drive to break away from traditionalist constraints and propel their societies toward progress, secularism, and economic development. The comparison underscores the enduring tension between modernization and tradition in the Islamic world across different historical epochs. Of course, it is essential to acknowledge that each of these figures had their own imperfections in executing their policies to achieve their goals. However, their overall intent to modernize their respective nations by diminishing the influence of Islamic fundamentalism remains a commendable aspect of their historical legacies. Are you tired of the divisions fueled by nationalism and religious bigotry? If you are yearning for a world that embraces unity and peace, consider supporting our channel by buying us a coffee. As this channel dares to question sensitive but problematic issues, it may never get monetized. Your contribution empowers us to challenge prejudice, bridge gaps, and promote understanding. I will finish this clip by another poem by Yazid that presents wisdom about instability and unpredictability of life on this planet. But before that, if you're intrigued by more details about Yazid's poetry or his life, let me know in the comments and I'll consider creating another episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share either. He who hoards his wealth to leave it to his foes, what troubles he endures in this world of woes. How many a miser fails to gain his prize, and one who never strove to wealth arise. How many a one who craves for glory here is humbled by what falls from heaven's sphere. How many a one who hopes to live for aye dies while he hopes and death is on the way. How many a one who dreads the doom of death lives on and life is but a breath.